Hi, Jono here from St. T's, and welcome to another one of these Getting to Know You sessions. This is episode 5. You can catch up on the previous 4 if you haven't already on our YouTube channel, so do head over there if you haven't already. But I'm really privileged today to have managed to get a little window of time with Bobby. Bobby, do you want to share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, where you live, how you kind of came to be part of the St. T's family?
Yeah, so obviously I'm Bobby. I'm from London, and then I found myself here in Lancaster doing a PhD 6 years ago now. Thinking I was just gonna pass through, and I caught the Lancaster bug. So sort of roughly 3 years ago, as part of my search to really reconnect with God, I started doing a tour of the Lancaster churches and found St. T's and really settled in. I think I've heard this from many people. It's just the church that makes you feel at home. And I think that's very much what I needed at the time. No pressure, just a feeling of let's just be with God and just enjoy the space together. And yeah, so I think I'm integrating into the church now, part of the youth leadership, which is pretty cool. And I think picking up slightly a few more responsibilities going forward. So it's great to be a member of St. T's and great to be here to chat to you today.
That's awesome. And we're so grateful to have you and all that you bring. I know you've done a little bit of work with students as well, haven't you, in the past? And yeah, I know you've been kind of finding your feet and finding where you fit, which is fantastic. Firstly, how has kind of coronavirus been for you? How have you found your life has kind of changed, or what have been the kind of significant changes and challenges? Whether in your kind of home life or work life, or what's it turned upside down for you? Maybe what has God been showing you through this kind of time, do you feel?
Yeah, so I think interestingly, it's been a time for a lot of growth. And I think that fits me right in the middle of where St. T's is actually. There's this image of a chrysalis that's come about and you're in it and God is going to rip apart who you are to reform you. And so I've actually gotten busier through lockdown as opposed to less so on the work front, which in itself is a blessing because I know that work has been a big worry for most people. But then what's happened is I've gotten busier, but I've gotten more stationary. So actually my schedule was crazy, running around, time at the uni. Then I used to play rugby for the Vale of Lune. So time in the rugby club and then time at St. T's, and there was a lot of moving around. And I think doing all of it stable really showed me where the gaps were and actually where I could squeeze in some more time with God, which has been absolutely brilliant. I think emotionally it's been a bit of a difficult one because my wife's stuck in Brazil at the moment. And, she went just before lockdown for what was supposed to be like 2 or 3 months. And then now she can't really come back for, we're hoping earliest by Christmas. So it would be almost a year that we've been apart. So that's been like an underlying tone, which has really marked everything. But I think despite that, God has really revealed to us how strong we can be in this time. And I think that's probably what I'm going to take away from lockdown this whole period was a lot of inner strength that I didn't really know I had before. And God has really shown me that I am capable of a lot more than I would have given myself credit for.
Yeah, probably quite a lot of us have found ourselves kind of stretched in different directions and having to learn new skills. And I think God's definitely been on the move in that. It's really great to hear that, and we'll hold you guys in prayer as well. Long distance relationships are hard at the best of times, aren't they? And it seems like that's something that we can all pray for you guys as well in your marriage, because you've not been married that long either, have you?
No, we got married September last year. So okay. Actually, Olivia is from Brazil, so we're long distance our whole marriage and our whole relationship pre-marriage, and we're looking forward to finally getting time together. But so one of the messages for us when we were praying about starting a relationship and everything was God saying that he would lead us where he needed us to go. So I think for us, it's been a sort of strength having that as a theme of our marriage, to be able to say, you know, if God's vision for us is for you to be there, for me to be here right now, it's not easy, but it's something we're going to have to trust.
Yeah, well, that's something. If I can encourage you watching, if you're someone that prays, you know, here's something to pray into and pray for. Thank you, Bobby, for sharing that with us. I know another part of this kind of crazy, obviously we've had all the COVID stuff that's kind of taken off and turned the world upside down. But the other thing really significant since the kind of lockdown period that I think has turned the world upside down in a slightly different way has been initiated really in the murder of George Floyd and others in America and the UK and across the world. It's been brought to light, I suppose, where there's still a huge amount of oppression towards Black and ethnic minority people. Obviously, it's been in America that a lot of the coverage has been, but we're very aware that it's still a really dominant issue in the UK. And I'm also very aware that I am on staff team, being a white, I don't know if I call myself middle class, but probably for the purpose of this exercise, I would probably do fall into the white middle class bracket, as do the vast majority of our staff team at church. And we'd be really interested just to hear a bit of your experience, as much as you're happy to share with us, about how kind of life has been, I suppose, different for you. I guess moving from London to Lancaster has been quite a shift in terms of the kind of diversity and kind of ethnic stuff that goes on. But how has the whole Black Lives Matter thing kind of affected you? What's your been responses to that?
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a sensitive topic in terms of I actually get emotional thinking and talking about it, which hasn't really been a thing for me before. I think God has been growing my empathy over time as well. So I think it's probably one of the first times. I mean, I've obviously grown up through racial injustices. Being a Black person in England, we don't avoid it. I've always said to people, you know, we're obviously not the US. The US is on a different level. But if every Black person you know personally, and most of us have at least one Black friend, can tell you a story about how they faced some sort of racial injustice, then there is something there. And so it's, you know, we developed a thick skin over here, which is our coping mechanism. It's just, you know, you grit your teeth and you get on with it. And so I think I always came at it from this point of view. And my dad is someone who's broken many barriers through poverty, through racism. So that's definitely how I was raised. Of this is what the world is like, and you just work harder. That's all you're capable of doing, and you just, you know, create your own opportunities because they're not going to come your way. So I think I haven't been really emotionally connected with previous tales of injustices. And so I think just God had me in the right place with my heart with George Floyd. And, you know, first time I saw that video, I almost cried. Which I will tell you, it's not, that has a big statement coming from me. But I'm grateful that I think the big difference is it hitting at the time of Corona. That most of the time, people are just getting on with their lives and people are too busy, and, you know, people stop for a moment and really connect with what is happening or what happens, because it's not the first time we've heard about an innocent person being killed in the US. But then everyone, you know, okay, this is done now, but tomorrow I'm on the train to work and I need to think about my schedule for tomorrow. So it's just a fleeting moment. Whereas this is the first time in a long time, probably since the riots in the 70s and the 80s, that people have actually had a moment to stop and reflect on what the situation is like. So it feels very different. this time around. And I'm grateful for the unity, because we've always said, you know, I've actually been watching a lot of Muhammad Ali interviews recently as well. And he reflects exactly how I feel. Is, you know, there is absolute maximum, probably 5% of people who are genuinely racist. Most people are just getting on with their lives and dealing with it. But then if the majority of the people aren't you're not on their radar, you're below notice for them, or your injustice, better to say, your injustice is below their radar, then the 5% who are willing to go out of their way to make life difficult for you have their way. So I feel like this movement is slightly different in that we're winning a lot of the neutral people over to the side of justice, which I think it's really great to see. And I think like even this conversation is an example of how, you know, people are willing to educate themselves more on the topic as well, which is really helpful. I think here, especially in the UK, it's very easy to miss the racism all around you and the undertones of it. And so you actually have to go out of your way to educate yourself on the issue. It's not just staring you in the face. So I think I myself are willing to have had to step out of my personal experience of, you know, the stories of racism I could tell you are stories of people I know around me, to really what we face as a people. I think that's what I've had to do with this current movement, is really to educate myself on the issue at large and the historic issue. And, you know, can we actually make a difference this time? Is the fact that the world around me seems to be shifting actually significant enough to cause a permanent shift? Is the curiosity, as my primary curiosity. So a good book I would recommend, which I think is as neutral as a book on racism can get, is a book called Natives by, he's a rapper called Akala. And he basically describes how racism, as we experience it in the UK, is a result of colonialism. And he puts the two together, and you can really see how the current landscape has evolved. And I kind of like it because he's not bashing anyone. He's just presenting the facts as they are. And, you know, it's not, he says exactly the same thing. It's not the fact that most people you come across are racist. It's the fact that the few racist people have had a voice. And actually the system has not helped us in stamping out those voices. Yeah, so I think as a church, it's quite difficult. What could we do as a church? I don't think we could do much more different to what we are doing now. And so I think at St. T's is a very open church. I don't think I've for a moment felt you know, unwelcome, even unintentionally, at St. T's. I think that's a crucial one, is, you know, as a leadership, you might have undeserved guilt that you're not doing enough to welcome people of diverse cultures. I can't remember, it was one of the last services that I was a part of, where, you know, we talked about the refugees and everything. I think it's really important to shed a light on the diversity we have. And I was meeting with Matt, the new curate, and he said, as an example of stuff that we could introduce is, you know, we could read the Bible in Farsi once or twice, because we've got a lot of Iranian refugees. And there's a difference of being welcome and like nobody makes you feel alienated from a situation. And you go that further step to actually bring a piece of home to where this place is. And so I would say that's probably the point to improve. If we could perhaps do more of that, where we bring a piece of other cultures. Maybe in a sermon, we talk about other sort of races and how Christianity affects them there, you might feel that you don't know enough to talk about it. But actually what this movement is teaching me a lot is that there is a wealth of information out there. And actually the systemic racism in the UK, I must stress that everything we talk about is in the UK because, yeah, the US is but the systemic racism in the UK is the fact that whenever you're going to think of an example of someone of faith or an example in a classroom, the first example that comes to light is a white person. That comes to light is a white person. So if some of these examples could actually come from Black people, some of these examples could come from the Asian community, that's a way to bring in diversity in a very subtle way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think thank you so much for sharing what you shared. That's really powerful. And I think that thing of passivity is something that I know I've slipped into a number of times, and I'm sure there's other people who maybe squirm when I challenge you, like, is that something that you've slipped into as well? Like, not, as you say, not like intentional racism, but it's kind of like the Good Samaritan, isn't it? Where they crossed to the side, and it's not them that beat him up, but it's them that crossed to the side and didn't want to touch him. And it was and it was a Samaritan that actually picked him up and took him to the hotel and checked his window. And it was that not being passive, isn't it, that actually so definitely check out that book. I know it's interesting, isn't it, because I know a lot of the stuff that I've seen, so there's I've watched the kind of Khalif Browder documentary series on Netflix, and there's Now They See Us as well, which is all kind of American, quite extreme levels of injustice. But there's not readily accessible in that sense, that I've found anyway, as much as you say about the UK side of things. And actually our colonial history is something that we don't get taught a huge amount in school either. I think even at school level, we hear a lot about how we won both world wars, and you do topics and topics and topics on the kind of Blitz and D-Day and all that kind of stuff. But actually, looking at how the white British, went in and invaded and trashed most of the rest of the world over the last 500-600 years, just doesn't get a look in. And I think there's real power in us choosing to educate ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's the cheekiness of something that's systematic, is, as you say, it. There is, most Britons would have heard that, yes, we did trash the rest of the world. But actually, when most of your conversations are based on the fact that we trashed most of the world, but we won loads of opium, we brought tea from India, we brought sugar. We killed a whole load of people. But, we had really great transatlantic saves. And so the emphasis, it's mentioned, but the emphasis is put on the positive parts, where actually, especially in the world we live in of information, we are in a place where we can actually afford to look at situations objectively, which is what history is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an objective look, especially with our colonial history. It's so biased towards the positives of colonialism, which there were, that the negatives is just sort of just pushed to the back of our minds.
Yeah. I think I've found that really challenging. I feel slightly lost for words at this point. Normally I do like a little roundup and we kind of close these well, but I don't feel like that's appropriate, really. I don't feel like this is something that I want to round up and close in that sense. I think my hope is that for each of you watching, particularly if you fall into the same category as me, as being white, British, and brought up, sort of born and bred, and this is maybe all new to you or makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, that actually that's not a bad thing. And I hope that this is the start of that kind of conversation. And please don't just kind of go from this and continue to be passive. I think that's something that's been made really clear.
And I think for people I've spoken to, there's a lot of embarrassment around the topic. You're not racist, and so talking to someone about racism shouldn't make you embarrassed. And actually, you should just, that's probably where you need a bit of courage to overcome that embarrassed feeling, to really just, ask your Black friend, okay, so what is this all about? I mean, my housemates are absolutely brilliant. They sat me down and they're like, okay, we're hearing all of this. What do you actually feel about it? Which I then went on a 2-hour rant, so I'm sure they'll regret that conversation. But no, I think it's very important for you to just open up and speak about it. I think a lot can happen when people remain silent. And so as long as we're talking about it, changes can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Bobby, so much for your honesty, for your willingness to share with us, for your time, and for all that you are and all that you bring to the life of our church. I know our student team and our youth team are so grateful to have you around. We love having you around. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to chat properly in person one day. One of these days.
Would be great.
Yeah. Awesome. Can I pray for you before we finish?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So if you want to join in at home, please do. Lord God, I thank you for Bobby. Lord, I thank you for the man that he is, and for his character and for his integrity in the way that he has shared so vulnerably with us. Lord, I thank you that you are a God of justice, first and foremost. Lord, that you seek to build that within us. You seek to break our heart for what breaks yours, and that is our prayer again today. We sing those words from time to time, but would you break our heart for what breaks yours afresh? And we know that that is for injustice. And I just want to pray for each person watching this, that we would be stirred to no longer be passive, and that we would be people that share your love and your light and your life with each person that we meet. And we just pray for Bobby as he continues in all that life holds for him at this time. We pray for just that he would find good company while he's away from his wife, and that you bring them back together soon, safely. Amen.